Canterbury-based Daniel Smith Industries is primarily in the crane game, but in order to shift his gigantic cranes around the country, Daniel's built up a very impressive fleet of mainly 8-wheeler Kenworth tractors and tri-drives to drag his formidable armoury around. They undertake a lot of big lifts around the country, like this lift in Christchurch, which requires big gear and a lot of organisation to firstly get it there and then to undertake the job. The boys are cranking up to finish off the last few loads of a 400-tonne Liebherr LR 1400 crane. When configured in its super lift configuration, this crane can end up with 450 tonnes of ballast bolted to it. It may weigh nearly 1,000 tonnes and can take 36 truckloads to shift. On this particular morning, Ivan Taylor in the K104 Aerodyne leads Peter Gregan, Andy Briggs and Peter Owens in their respective Kenworths on this haul. This particular crane is so big that Peter Lamb and the company T904 had to head over the Lewis with the main body, as some of the bridges and tunnels on the Kaikoura route would have stopped it. He'll meet the rest of the team at Picton. As we've seen, traffic is generally quite light in the South Island, even on this most busy of roads, and the boys were able to keep each other in sight for most of the trip, even managing to get the timing right for the tunnels and all squirt through at the same time. We've seen plenty of trucks peel off bits of trailer on the entry to these tunnels over the years, and it requires a steady hand and a good eye to line up these old relics. There's not much clearance for the big gear. A huge amount of traffic, by South Island standards, comes down this road, and it's the primary route south from the North Island. It's a snug road that's sandwiched between cliff and shoreline, and it carries the majority of the southern-bound heavy traffic that comes off the Cook Strait ferries. The Kaikoura coastline is often in the news because of weather taking up the road or railway because of slips or flooding. And sadly, it's become notorious for the amount of accidents that happen on this bit of road, mainly because drivers underestimate its level of difficulty. The real miracle is that it isn't closed more often than it is, and given its tunnels, snaky nature, and the many tight, slow corners and weird cameras, not to mention the sheer volume of traffic it carries, which is far more than was ever envisaged by its planners, it's not surprising that this road has gained a reputation as one of the most tricky roads to drive in New Zealand. The road rail bridge at Seddon has been retired. That didn't break many hearts, as it was a shocking bridge for this day and age, and it too bore the scars of trucks that didn't get the perfect entry or exit line right. Once at Picton, there's the usual manoeuvring to get rigs of this size into the straight shipping vessel. Peter Lamb and the T904 turned up on time, but backing this load with its load divider isn't as straightforward as backing a semi, and the combination had Peter working hard backing down into the Montistello. Daniel Smith Industries is just as well known in the North Island as it is in the south in certain quarters, and has supplied the craneage necessary to help erect many of the huge wind turbines that are peppering the landscape. In fact, one of their levers was used extensively at the Tararua wind farm, where we found Tranzcarr hard at work about the same time as that haul. If there's one company that sets the standards for heavy haulage these days, it's Tranzcarr, who operate this Pacific heavy haul tractor as part of an extensive inventory of big hitters, and was originally put to work in 1991 at Huntly as a Coal Corp dump truck. This S24 Scamel is also a veteran heavy hauler. It's been around for decades and is rated to pull 300 tonnes. In fact, pretty well all the trucks you see with Tranzcarr on the door are equipped to do the hard yards and rated to pull impressive weights. We were hoping to see the lever in action, but the winds were too strong on the day. But we're happy enough to see the Pacific dragging the 25-tonne tower section up the road. Weight-wise, these are just pups, and the heaviest loads are the nacelle, which weighed 70 tonnes on these particular turbines and needed more tractors for the pull. This Mack Titan is signature powered and 200-tonne rated, and is being assisted by a tri-drive because of bridge traction and capacity restrictions. Further north, and 3 years later, we hunted Tranzcarr down at the site of their latest wind farm project, mainly to catch up with a pair of ex-log train Kenworth C500 tractors they'd put to work that we'd heard had impressive rebuilds. But before the off-road boys can get their teeth into the job, the on-road haulers have to drag the components to the Te Uku wind farm near Raglan. Tranzcarr's on-road armoury is just as impressive as their off-road counterparts, and they've got some serious firepower on the tarmac. This T-Series Scania is a rare beast in this country, but is ideally suited to this job. company has equipped itself with the Rolls-Royce of multi-line trailers, German-built Goldhofer units, primarily for their state-of-the-art braking. If a tractor spits a diff or a coupling fails on the gradients Tranzcarr work with, there are no second chances, and Goldhofer has the market cornered in this field. The aptly named Blade Runner arrives with its cargo, and whichever on-road truck pulls in, it's soon turned around and sent back with an empty trailer. This job entails 2 sets of everything. It's a complex and extremely demanding operation, but site boss Baz Julian runs a slick operation with just 7 men. Baz is responsible for getting 28 wind turbines on site, with each turbine comprised of 5 sections plus 3 blades, adding up to 300 tonnes per turbine, with the heaviest load being the 84-tonne nacelle.
Big Pacific, weighing out a 40 tonne as a tractor, is powered by an 8V92 with a Allison in it, Allison Auto and reduction boxes. Fairly heavy truck right the way through, and that's our main truck for hooking onto the trailers for towing these loads, generally on the front of the load or it's on the back for retardation.
These Kenworths were put to work specifically for the Meridian Project West Wind near Wellington that had 21% gradients, with one section a brutal 25 minutes long. And even on this job, he'll have 4 tractors on the heaviest of the loads on these 17% grades. Baz said they killed about $100,000 worth of diffs on that job, with crown wheels and pinions and hub reductions dying in action. They rebuilt these trucks at a cost of about $400,000 each, plus another couple of $100,000 to buy and fit the crane on Tāne Mahuta, especially for this work. They equipped them with Detroit Diesel Series 60 engines rated at 525 horsepower. But it's the Allison automatics with their 3-to-1 torque converters, 4-speed Spicer reduction auxiliary boxes and 9-to-1 ratio Clark hub reduction axles that give these trucks the muscle for the job. It's not about horsepower, it's about low gearing and massive torque. And traction. And for traction, you need weight. And these tractors are ballasted to weigh 32 tonnes, and the Pacific, 40 tonnes. This requires teamwork, and these men all rely on the others doing their job perfectly. Any job involving even a normal truck has a risk potential, but when you work with gradients and weights such as these, and with as many vehicles and trailers, the potential risks get exponentially greater. These men are highly trained and experts at what they do. And today we've got Wilson Tanamu driving Tāne Mahuta, Baz's son, Todd Julian, driving the other big Kenworth, and Dave Kinsey behind the wheel of that massive Pacific. Russell Parker is driving the Mack Superliner and Gary Vaughan operates the trailer.
You might have to go and get the hostage board. Oh, keep going. Yeah, looking good, Russ.
We built these trucks, Tranzcarr built them for Project Westwind, which was Wellington. For 21% grades we were dragging up there at about 250 tonne all up. I've gone through and built them with 3 trucks or 4 trucks on a trailer. Weight wise, these 6 wheelers are 32 tonne as a tractor. Just to do this job, 3 trucks traction wise, as much weight on as we can to get the traction on the hills, especially on the loose metal. 3 trucks, 4 trucks. Our big Pacific that we've got, the big one you see there is weighted up at 40 tonne, just totally for traction, and not only traction but also retardation on the big hills when it's on the back of a load. As much retardation as we can get, because of the fact that with the Detroits in these 2 here, 60 series, we can't get our engine braking up high enough for the speeds that we're travelling at on the downhills with the weight we're pushing. So we need to get as much retardation out of some of the other big trucks as we can. These trucks have worked out really well with the 60 series Detroits, Allisons in them, and reduction boxes. We've gone right through these as ground up rebuilds probably 2 years ago. Full rebuilds, they're going really well for the job, and I think Dave Gale will probably build more of them. Just totally for doing this sort of work, totally designed for off-road and the conditions we're working in.
We get to see plenty of impressive trucking operations around the country, but we reckon the Tranzcarr team stand out for their sheer professionalism under long-term duress, and there's no question that the size of their gear puts them in a class of their own. It's always impressive to see a big load shifted, but these boys do several massive loads per day, day after day, for months at a time, without incident. And they make it look so easy that people lose sight of the enormous forces involved in dragging this much tonnage up these steep inclines.